Today we're headed for the Appalachians, to wild and wonderful West Virginia. West Virginia has some of the most beautiful and breathtaking views that you'll see in the country, especially those from atop Cooper's Rock, which is just east of Morgantown. And Morgantown, for you travel and history enthusiasts, is the home of West Virginia University Mountaineers college football. It's also the hometown of former actor and comedian Don Knotts, best known for his roles as Deputy Barney Fife in the 1960s Andy Griffiths Show and Landlord Ralph Furley in the 1980s sitcom Three's Company. Morgantown has some great monuments too, like this one which pays homage to President John F. Kennedy. And speaking of the Kennedys, Morgantown was once a renowned glass manufacturer under the name of the Morgantown Glassware Guild, or Morgantown Glass Factory, which has the distinct honor of being chosen by Jacqueline Kennedy to produce the formal stemware for the Whitehouse, which is still being used to this day. But with all that aside, we want to take you to a little-known town just a short distance northwest of Morgantown and the Monongahela River, to the town of Osage, West Virginia. Osage and the Scotts Run coal mines made a name for themselves in the coal industry, which boomed here in the early 1900s. But over time, modern mechanization and a shift to using diesel in many industries that once relied on coal for fuel, as well as the arrival of Highway I-79 to the Scotts Run area, prompted the closure of the mines in the second half of the 20th century. However, the community of Osage remains to this day a friendly, humble, and closely knit neighborhood that has held on strong to its history and heritage. Osage sets the example of what a community should be: good people. And today, we get to share with you a little bit of that history and heritage and celebrate a new book that preserves the stories of Scotts Run, right here on this episode of History and Relics. The Scotts Run communities runs just a few miles in length in Monongahela County, adjacent to Morgantown, West Virginia. These communities include Osage, Pursglove, Geer, and Cassville, among others. The area once had roughly 60 different coal mines operating at any one time and was once the nation's highest producer of coal. During the early 1900s, the area saw a booming mine industry, particularly as World War I increased the demand for coal. This was a major shift from its agricultural origins, and as the land was sold from farmers to coal companies, Scotts Run was well positioned for this industry, given its coal resources, access to riverways and railroads, and proximity to Pittsburgh. 1923 was its best production year, with over 4 million tons produced. The workforce and families in this area were uncharacteristically diverse. While most were immigrants, there were all races and nationalities from dozens of countries around the globe. About 60% of the population was foreign-born, and 20% were African American. Many were recruited by agents from the South and from Eastern Europe. Local men also joined the coal labor force as agricultural work had declined. The Great Depression of the 1930s, however, saw deflation of this industry, and it hit Scotts Run particularly hard. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt came to the area in 1933 and was deeply saddened and moved by the experience, leading to the creation of the Arthurdale Experimental Community, which was a social experiment spearheaded in Arthurdale, West Virginia, of homestead communities built from the ground up by the federal government during the Great Depression, complete with spacious new homes with indoor plumbing, modern appliances, and furniture. However, while there were good intentions through this reconstruction initiative, only a few select and very lucky few were able to partake in this opportunity. The area and its plight also drew the attention of Walker Evans and other famous photographers. Documenting the conditions and lives of those living in rural America was sponsored during these times by the Farm Security Administration, which was part of the USDA. The Scotts Run area became one of the faces of the economic hardship in the coal fields. Even during the coal boom, this community suffered from problems such as lack of health care and poor sanitation. The years continued to be unfavorable for the Scotts Run area. During the 1940s, the area experienced a series of mine disasters, and the growing development of machines to mine decreased the need for human labor. Other technologies, such as those used in powering locomotives, reduced the need for coal in general. During the past century, churches and the organizations they sponsor have played a major role in the Scotts Run community. The Settlement House was founded in 1922 by the Women's Home Missionary Society of the present-day Wesley United Methodist Church in Morgantown. The Settlement House continues to serve this great community to this day, with food and other assistance for those in need. Founded in 1932 by Mary E. Benner in the tradition of the Settlement House movement and sponsored by mission of the First Presbyterian Church in Morgantown, as well as the church's National Board of Missions, the Shack sought to meet the spiritual as well as social and physical needs of coal miners and their families. During the Great Depression, this was one of the places visited by First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. While Scotts Run is no longer the booming coal town it once was, there is one thing that has not changed: the people that make this community. They are as closely knit, diverse, and community strong than probably the neighborhood that you live in. It's a bond that dates back more than a century and is alive and well more than ever today. The residents and the organizations that serve the area are committed to preserving the rich history and building a future for Scotts Run. And it all starts right here. The Scotts Run Museum, a nonprofit organization directed by lifelong Osage resident Mary Jane Coulter, celebrates and preserves the history of coal and the coal boom era in the communities that make up Scotts Run and encourages growth and development in the area. Since the museum opened, each Saturday, current and former residents of the community gather to share a cup of coffee and a good story. In addition, several projects have formed to tell their past and present stories. One such initiative is a new book out, put together with the great assistance from Eve Falks, and made possible by a grant from the West Virginia Humanities Council. The book is entitled Preserving the Stories of Scotts Run, West Virginia, a 10-year partnership from 2011 to 2021. And this book was just recently accepted by the Library of Congress. Today, during their annual street fair event, we had a chance to meet and chat with Eve, along with a few other pillars of this great community. But really, everyone here plays an important part. Everyone together makes this the unbreakable community that it is. And with that, let's listen in now to Eve to learn more about how this book came about.
So I'm at the Scotts Run Street Fair, which I think is something like the 35th one, and my name's Eve Falks, and I didn't grow up here, but I have been involved with this community for 10 years, which is what is actually the reason I'm sitting at this table is I'm promoting the book that we've just completed that the West Virginia Humanities Council helped fund that documents it's called Preserving the Stories of Scotts Run, West Virginia, and a 10-year partnership from 2011 to 2021. Their history, of course, goes way back to the 1800s, but I'm involved because I teach graphic design at West Virginia University. Actually, I just retired after like 41 years.
Wow, congratulations.
And I teach a class that's kind of about community development. It's called Design for Social Impact.
Okay.
And I originally met this community, which is a conglomeration of 13 former coal camps that are called Scotts Run, named after the creek that had about, depending on if you count all the years there were mines there, 30 to 60 mines in a 7-mile area that spanned the creek.
Okay.
And they needed water for that. But so what makes this community that's called Scotts Run really special, and the reason we have a museum about it, is because it's a history of mining, but in this sense, it's about the relationships of people that did the mining. And most histories that are told are about the tonnage of coal that came out and the 14 seams and the 4 seams of coal that were on top of each other in this area. And we actually have some very good historians within the community that can tell you that as well. But when history talks about Scotts Run, it generally links it to the Great Depression, because that's when the mines started to be failing, not because they were failing, but because the World War I had ended, the need for a great amount of coal was over, and they were still producing about twice the amount that was needed. And so all of the recruitment that had brought miners here from 23 countries in Eastern Europe and Europe itself and Scandinavia and Mexico, and the great migration of blacks from the South escaping Jim Crow, they'd all come here because of ads saying they needed miners. And so they were here, and then they didn't need as many miners. So it started to become, at the same time the U.S. hit the Great Depression, there was also automation involved, so there were a lot of reasons that this started to become a really impoverished area during the Great Depression. But the stories that are not told is how they did survive and why they survived. And they survived because they really had bonded with one another. They bonded over tragedy. They bonded over it's not even the poverty itself, to the degree that they adopted each other's kids when a parent went missing or was disabled. And so you would have black kids joining white families, white kids joining black families, and so this is integration working at its best, and it's been integrated since the 1920s, and it took America another 40 years to catch up. You know, I'm not sure we ever caught up.
Right.
What I've been doing since I met them, I first met them, as the book will say, because my university had was affiliated with the Northern West Virginia Brownfields Association, which helps, like, you know, repurpose industrial, like, places that need help to let them turn into something that's not polluted. And so they had one of these down the street here, and this event was pairing university faculty with different kinds of expertise with people from communities. There were 8 different communities, and we were all paired up. They were competing for $5,000 grant to do something with whatever they were proposing.
Yeah.
So there was like a cement block plant down here that was just, you know, sitting there. And so we made our proposal, and we didn't win the $5,000, but we won respect for each other, and we decided to keep doing something anyway. We did get a People's Choice Award for $1,000, so we put that right into doing a brochure, and that would, and then some of the other faculty that were with me, we had a visioning meeting for the whole 13 communities, and they came up with like 4 or 5 things that they thought they really wanted to do to get this place buzzing again. One of them was to make a museum, and that's the one I tackled with my students in that project coming that fall. And so the museum you see next door to this strip here is that. And the book tells the story of that project and the mural project and the community garden and every other way we could think of to tell their stories. And so it's all about getting the word out that I've been talking about, you know, about what makes this place tick.
Right.
And sharing it, because the U.S. needs that message right now.
That's right.
And
needs good messages right now.
It needs good messages.
It gets good people messages right now.
It does.
Absolutely.
And that's the part that we thought was missing in the histories being told about it. Yeah. So I could have thumbed through some of it. We've got everything from timelines in there to ways that we preserved it during COVID. You know, we help. So it's all about making sure that people. These are some of my students. One year, a lot of things that we do get presented at whatever street fair is going on. This particular year, we had a 5K race because one of my students was willing to do that, and one of our faculty actually won it. Co-people.
Oh, very cool.
And then when we first met each other, we helped. We always have to build trust some way with each new class.
Right.
But around here, they're used to us bringing new people in, and they're always loving the students that come. But the students have to still prove that they're willing to work too. So they always do something that's giving back to the community besides design.
Paying it forward.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
A few things from the museum, and then there's some regular. Another thing I should mention is that the Farm Security Administration photographers, like Walker Evans and Ben Shawn and Mary Post Walcott, covered this area in 1935 and 38. So we've been able to take advantage of the Library of Congress collection of all those photographs. So there's at least 1,000 wonderful images that are in the Library of Congress. So
that's terrific.
They're partly here. So that makes it. This woman, Helen Antonek, she just died 2 years ago. She stopped working at 94, and I think she made it another 8 months after that. But she started working at this gas station that was down the street, and she had to speak 7 languages because that's how many people were customers.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So she started at age 9, spoke 7 languages.
Holy cow.
So
that's awesome.
That's some of the idea of the histories that are here. And this is like way too small to see, I'm sure. This is a picture of 3 boys. The middle one's a black boy, and that was another of those pictures taken in 1935. Just to prove we're not lying about it being integrated at that point. So this place got a big pickup in people attending after we had a big, we first made a CD of there's a big music history here, so we had a CD of our music, and then my dean, who was an opera singer, heard it. I didn't think he'd be interested in our music here, but he was, so he helped us get a big show at the Met Theater in Morgantown, and we filled the house. And we had images behind all the songs so that you got kind of a multimedia performance. So he came to that, and then he started coming, and he had been the controller for the mines, which you would think would not get along with the miners, but he was so fair and honest that they were best friends. And he said that he got all of his values from this Jewish store owner who had come here after the Holocaust, and Max Levine was his name. He lived in Morgantown, but he served this area with a department store, and George worked for him, and said he was just this most amazing man that made him who he was. So those guys all get together, and that was the swimming pool. So they all get together like this, and that's what it looks like on a Saturday morning. And that's where real history gets told.
Oh, I bet.
Because they're having to agree on what they know. These are my students making books. We've made at least 24 books that help tell some of the stories, individual books. And those are some of them. So a whole bunch of stuff's in this book.
Absolutely. That's fantastic.
And I haven't even talked about Al Anderson. That's a whole other issue. Al was a doo-wop singer with Billy Ward and the Dominoes in 1962, and he's going to be singing at noon. He's supposed to be singing at noon today.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so that's worth some video too. he was also Citizen of the Year in Mon County.
Okay.
So there's what you don't expect to see in here are the stories about where people made it from here. You know, people whose fathers worked in the mines have graduated from Harvard and UCLA, so they're respected education.
The thing I'd like to add here
You speak up, Don.
is that as someone who's worked in higher education, to me one of the exciting things about what Eve has done here is involving her students, because the students, by getting involved, have a sense of excitement, if you will, about being able to make substantive contributions to a community.
Right.
And that helps guide not only their education, but also their attitude toward communities as they emerge as citizens.
So even what they're learning, they're able to put their hands on it.
Absolutely.
And that becomes real then at that point. It's tangible.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a completely different demographic than their own. They're really comfortable with their own demographic. So they come here and they have to be uncomfortable for a little while, but they always are glad they did it. And that's the kind of seed we want to plant, because graphic designers have to be good communicators and they have to empathize with who they're working with, and this is a really good way to get that goal.
Sure is. Thank you both very much.
Hi, I'm Mike Atfield. I'm from North London in England originally, and I came over here in late 1977 to work in coal miners' health and safety at NIOSH, and since then we've stayed here for over 43 years. We've got 2 family members here who live in California now, and we live in a coal mining camp here called Booth. Here at the Scotts Run Festival, representing the Community Coalition for Social Justice. This is a group of local people who get together regularly. It was formed over 20 years ago because of Klan activity in the area, and this was a reaction to it. And since then we've continued to meet and do certain things. We certainly publish what we do on the website, but also apart from that, our main activity is to run a special event for Martin Luther King Jr. Day at the Metropolitan Theatre, which is a celebration really aimed at children so they can learn things, and we get children to perform, and we get special people, actors and musicians and things like that.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Next up, we'll have a quick chat with one of Osage's most famous residents, Al Anderson. Al runs a local shoe repair business here. He's the second owner, purchasing the business from its original owner's family. Some of the equipment dates back 150 years. But that's not what he's most famous for. Al was one of the original members of the doo-wop group, the Fabians, back in the 1960s, who opened for such acts as Bo Diddley, Jan and Dean, the Isley Brothers, and Conway Twitty, among others. From there, Al became a member of the R&B group Billy Ward and the Dominoes, and the Dominoes were good. At one point, they had Sammy Davis Jr. and Ray Charles opening for them, and you know how big they were.
My name is Albert Al Anderson, and I'm 84 years old, and I grew up at Scotts Run here, and the one thing even about this museum, you know, we know that this was a very, very, very busy place back in the old days of time. And we want to preserve this museum because, you know, a lot of folks don't know that, you know, 19 nationalities came here and worked in these mines, about 40 mines here, and growing up as a kid, you know, we all just had very, very good times. You know, it was almost a place where, you know, probably one of the only non-segregated places in the whole country. You know, because that's how we all grew up. I mean, and then 1959, I got an opportunity to start with this band called the Fabians. And we performed for 3.5 years all over. And we went to Latrobe, PA a lot, and they have all these million sellers, that we fronted the band. And the good thing with all those guys is our band, they had all the songs written out in the same key of the performers. So we didn't have to worry about changing the key or anything because I sang all the keys of the performers.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And that's how I ended up getting a strong voice because I never knew a key to sing in. So when they graduated college in 1962, I got an opportunity to go to Hollywood, California to build one of the Mountaineers. And I was gone for 20 years between California and D.C. And I've been back here about 40 years. And I would never have been back here had my dad was ill. He was 72 when he retired from the mine, and I was gone he was about 84 years old. And my brother called from D.C. I just did What Do You Do on New Year's Eve? Really wanted dollars, which became a million and still sells a lot of songs. And instead of going on that trip, I came back, and my dad died 3 weeks after me and my brother went from D.C. every weekend. Third weekend he passed. And so if I had been in any one of those countries, Japan, Okinawa, Philippines, or Hawaii, I never would have got back here, see.
Yeah.
So I came back, and then so after all of my performing all over California and D.C., you see, so when I got back here in the early 80s, you'll see I bring my talent here.
Okay.
And everybody uses it, you see. So that's the blessing of me, being able to come back home and sing a lot. And then I've been had that shoe repair place up for 40 years as well. Yeah. And still do.
That's awesome.
And many people, come. There's no place to get shoes fixed today.
That's right.
So I'm blessed to not only be able to do that, but blessed to sing for 62 years. See?
Fantastic.
How blessed can you be?
That's right.
And I know many, many performers, and I tell people that, a friend of mine in D.C. told me one time, he said, Al, don't take those drinks. Every 45 minutes with a break, there was a drink. And he said, and I didn't smoke cigarettes. And the main thing was that don't let those not too good people get them, don't let them mess with that microphone. The biggest thing.
Yep.
See, because many singers have lost their voice by not protecting it. But I will fire you up in a minute. If that microphone, you mess with those dials wrong. And I don't care where I'm at.
Right.
So, but I've been very fortunate, to be still around at 84 years old and do, the things that we've done and creating something like this, it's just been such a blessing. And then Osage don't look like it looked 100 years ago, right. But it looks like that in here.
Right.
Because we have all the history.
Yep.
And this book that Eve Foulkes, we have to thank her so much, for putting much of this together, and her students and all the graphics and everything. So, we've been so blessed that we never would have been able to do it without someone like Eve Foulkes.
Well, Al, you look great. We're going to get to hear you here in just a little bit. Thank you very much for joining us today. God bless you, sir. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Thank you.
And he's still singing, folks, so be sure to stop by his shop to purchase one of his CDs that will surely bring back some great memories. He'll even autograph it for you. And now we're going to sit down and have a discussion with Lou Baracus, who is a true patriarch of Scotts Run. Lou's mission defines the purpose of the museum. His dedication in preserving the stories of the miners who once worked these mines has been tireless and unwavering. Lou and others have helped coordinate efforts and fundraising events to bring about memorials. A few of these can be seen just a few steps away from the museum. Lou's newest endeavor, that he'll speak of here, seeks to revamp a nearby park and ball field to improve a water drainage issue that exists. His eventual plan is to construct a new memorial on this site that commemorates all those miners who gave their lives in unfortunate mining accidents. Lou is a military veteran who served just after World War II in 1945 and 1946. Around his stint in the military, he played football at West Virginia University. He is one of the oldest living WVU alumni. He was also recently voted into the University High Hall of Fame.
Lou is a champion, and he certainly champions this museum and its great cause. So tell me a little bit about, obviously we're promoting the street fair today, promoting the awareness of the Scotts Run community,
Yes.
celebrating the new book that was published, telling everybody's story, bringing the human element to Osage, to the Scotts Run Museum, to the Scotts Run community. I noticed there's some new placards that have just been put up with reference to the large explosion that happened back in 1942.
We got a plaque down there.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, it's straight down there.
But I'm hoping that we can get that park back in shape and put a memorial there. And, because the area has been devastated by stormwater.
Okay.
Stormwater that was diverted into that area
Okay.
from some construction that took place. And somebody should be liable for doing that, diverting the water.
Okay.
Because they diverted water into an area that was safe and used and made it unusable.
Okay. So your plans for the park is to kind of re-engineer the park
Yes.
to continue to divert water, maybe including some larger piping
Larger piping would be the solution.
to get the water out.
That's happened a lot of places. When the university built their first stadium, are you familiar with the university? by
Yes.
chance?
Yes.
You remember the first stadium?
Vaguely.
Okay. The first stadium was built in an area that is similar to the creek right here.
Okay.
Falling Run came through that area where the stadium is.
Okay.
And to build a stadium, they put in a big concrete pipe and diverted the water into the pipe. So they covered the pipe with soil, built it up level, and made a football field out of it.
Okay.
And that football field is over Falling Run.
Okay.
Okay, our park has a little creek that came down through there when the mine was there,
Okay.
and it emptied into the Scotts Run. Well, after the mine moved out, because of the big explosion that took place where 56 were killed,
Yeah.
the coal company decided to donate that property to an organization in kind of memory of the explosion victims.
Okay.
So they donated the property to the Scotts Run Community Parks and Recreation Incorporated.
Okay.
And the local people put in a pipe and diverted the water into the pipe, and they built a football field, they built a baseball field, they had a horseshoe pitching, they developed it into a nice park.
Okay.
Well, but all the construction that was going on above the park diverted the water that wasn't coming into that area. They diverted it so it would come into the park.
Okay.
Because of all that took place, they devastated the park.
Gotcha.
And made it
Okay.
unusable.
Okay.
So now we've been trying to raise money to put in bigger pipe.
Okay.
To get some help
Okay.
from the county, from different sources, from the people who developed that area up there that diverted the water. Some of that money should come.
To kind of redo it.
And MUB, who takes care of stormwater, they charge people for stormwater.
Right.
And they should contribute some of that money towards putting that pipe in.
Right. To correcting the
Water
problem.
problem.
To correcting the problem.
Now, especially with President Biden's $1 trillion developing area where he's going to help build highways and waterways. Some of that money could be used
Okay.
to take care of that fight,
Okay.
which is important.
Okay.
And
So your plan is that once that gets done and established, not only will it bring the park back to life for people to enjoy, but then the next plan is to continue to honor those miners
Yes.
who have died throughout different mines in the Osage area,
Yes.
not just the one from 42, but others who had tragically, all of them.
all of them in Scotts Run.
Okay,
There's been a few of them,
yeah,
and it would liven up, and I think it would satisfy the families involved.
oh, absolutely.
Anyway, it would be great if we could get that park back in shape.
Absolutely.
I haven't given up. I still save pop cans.
Okay.
You didn't bring any pop cans by any chance?
I didn't bring pop cans.
And I collect them,
Okay.
smash them, and I keep the key.
Yep. The tab.
I keep them. I have a bushel full of them
Okay.
because I've collected that many cans, and every time I take them to the junkyard and sell them, that money goes into that fund,
Okay.
into the park fund,
Okay.
which is at the Huntington Bank anyway.
Okay.
But I'm still hoping. Some people have given up,
Yeah.
and I don't want to criticize anybody, but because they're doing what they think should be done. But I really believe that park should be put back in honor of the deceased
Yeah.
miners,
Yeah.
and also,
For the community as a whole,
yes,
so that everybody can enjoy it.
Yeah.
And there's a place for remembrances
yes,
of those miners who gave their life in this community.
yes, absolutely.
Well, I certainly appreciate your efforts, Lou. We will make sure to put the message out here, via our avenue, and we wish you a lot of luck in that regard.
very much.
And I'm glad to be part of it myself. I'm glad to be out here trying to make an effort as well and getting the word out. That's the biggest thing, getting the word out and getting the wallets open. So absolutely. So one more thing before I shut off the camera. You got to tell me a football story.
Oh, well, the football story, I guess it would be the fact that I didn't play any high school ball. I
Okay.
went to University High, and I graduated in 1944.
Okay.
At that time, University High didn't have a football team.
Okay.
So when I went to summer school after graduating, I met a gentleman from Fairmont.
Okay.
Who played in Fairmont.
Okay.
And when the football team was practicing in the old stadium, Coach noticed that there weren't enough recruits out there. So he sent the word. He put the word out. Anybody that wants to try out, they're welcome to come and try out.
Okay.
And this gentleman from Fairmont would like to try out. He said he would like to try out, but he didn't want to go by himself. So he talked me into going with him, even though I hadn't played in high school. I was very physical,
Okay.
and in fact, we would wrestle, and I would put him down, and he kind of resented it. But anyway, when he wanted to try out, he asked me to go with him.
Okay.
He wanted somebody to go with him. So he went to the old stadium where Coach was located and went in and asked him if he could try out. And he told him that he had played for Fairmont. And Coach Roger was tickled. He said, yeah, go down there and check out equipment and get out on the field, because they were practicing at the time. So he said, can I take my friend with me? And I think Rogers assumed that I had played high school ball too. Yeah, he said, take him down too and let him check out. So we went down, checked out equipment. He helped me put the pads on because I didn't know how to put pads on. And we went out on the field and we did a lot of running and running and running. A lot of it was conditioning. And it was a little bit too much for him, the gentleman from Fairmont. He wasn't in good physical shape.
Okay.
So he decided to quit. And when he did, I was thinking maybe I should quit too because he's the one who brought me down there. But other players on the fields told me to stay. Stick it out, stick it out. So I did. And I had the articles that were in the paper where the coach announced that they were going to have a scrimmage just before playing Pitt.
Okay.
And he gave the names of the offensive team. He gave the names of the defensive team.
Okay.
And since I hadn't played any ball, he put me on a defense.
Okay.
So I was put in a tackle position on defense. And eventually the coach told him to run through my position. And when the ball was snapped, I got through the line and I hit the halfback. I hit the back with the ball, and I put him on the ground behind the line of scrimmage. He didn't even get to the line of scrimmage. And the coach was upset. He said, there's a guy never played football, and you guys can't block him because they had scholarships. They had played. And he got in the huddle, and they called the same play. And I did the same thing. I got through the line, and I hit the hand. As soon as he got the ball from the quarterback, he was down.
Oh, that's funny.
And Coach Rogers had a hat on, a baseball hat. He took it off and threw it on the ground. He said, there's a guy never played any football, and he said a couple of strong words.
I bet he did.
And he said, and there's a guy that never played any ball, and you guys couldn't block him. And he said, Bayou Rakers, that's the first time he mentioned my name. He said, Bayou Rakers, if you play like that, you'll never miss a game. And that's when I got a scholarship. I didn't have a scholarship.
Wow, that's terrific.
But because of that action, when I went to pay for my books, another player said, you shouldn't be paying for these books because you got a scholarship. So I didn't pay for them. Anyway, I ended up getting free books with the
That's terrific.
University paid for them.
Yeah.
And eventually I got into the dorm.
Okay.
The men's dorm. But that's basically the story about me getting
your start. Yeah.
And I played in 44. We beat Penn State, which was a big upset for them because they hadn't been beaten on their own field.
Yeah.
And we beat them 28-27. Both teams scored 4 points.
Okay.
Or 4 touchdowns, but they missed one of their extra points. So we beat them 28-27.
Wow.
Anyway, we had a good season. We won 5, lost 3, and tied 1, I think it was. But it was a good season. But after my first year, I was drafted.
Right.
I went to service.
Yeah.
I spent a few months in the service.
Yeah.
And I have a story about that too, because the day I was inducted, I have the article or the paper that was sent to me from the government. You will report a certain place on a certain day in May. So I did. And then later when I did my research, I went through the newspapers and I found an article that was written 2 days later that was in the paper.
Okay.
And it showed Germany surrendering. And I jokingly say, they knew I was coming.
You're going to put them behind the line of scrimmage.
And then, of course, we were still fighting Japan.
Sure.
And when we kept fighting Japan, I eventually went to the where they shoot the gun.
The gunnery schools?
Yeah, it was, and I did pretty good.
Yeah.
In fact, after everything was over, the colonel that was in charge of the shooting sent me a letter congratulating me for getting the highest score of the troop.
Wow.
And I have the letter. I still have it.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And I sent that copy home. And my brother, who had been discharged after serving in Europe, received the letter and took it to the sports department.
Okay.
Because I asked him to.
Okay.
And he did. And the sports editor wrote a letter. And on that letter, I wrote down that 2 days after I scored that high score, Japan gave up. It wasn't an atomic bomb. It was much.
That's great. So then after that, you actually came back and played some more ball.
I came back and I played in 47, 48, and 48 team went to the Sun Bowl.
Okay.
So January the 1st of 49, we played the Sun Bowl and won 21 to 12.
Okay.
And then I came, after that I played in 49 and 50.
Okay.
I graduated in 50.
Okay. And now you recently got inducted into the West Virginia
To the University High
Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Okay. So you might be wondering how History and Relics came about this museum. Well, my family's heritage derives from this area. My dad and grandfather worked the mines here until my grandfather was killed in a single accident in May of 1955. Records of that incident are now part of this museum. My grandmother had to find work after that and took a position at the Morgantown Glassware Guild. So for me, there's lots of history and heritage here. I support the Scotts Run Museum, and I'm very glad to be part of events and initiatives like this. If you would like to contact, visit, or contribute to the museum with artifacts or monetary donations, or would like to purchase this newly published book, here's how you can do just that. So, as we wind things down, let's hear a snippet of Al before we leave out. Al, take us home.
Thank you so much.
We like that old time Al Anderson.
Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you. Shall I stay? Would it be a sin? But I can't help falling in love with you.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed our program. If you like our content, we ask that you like, share, and subscribe to our channel. It costs nothing but means a lot to us and keeps us growing. You may also leave us a tip if you choose. A link is provided here on your screen as well as in the description area below. And until next time, everyone, this one is history.